Gatesy was a man whose music made millions feel something deep and familiar. Yet the man behind the songs lived a life far more complicated than the lyrics suggested. John Denver, beloved folk legend and environmental activist, often sang about peace, love, and the quiet beauty of nature. But behind his bright smile and iconic hits was a personal life filled with internal battles, a crumbling marriage, and questions that would linger long after his untimely death. His most famous love song, Annie's Song, was written for his first wife, Annie, a woman who stood silently in the shadows while the world turned John into an icon. They met when she was a college student and he was just another dreamer. With a guitar, their love seemed pure, the kind of romance people write movies about. He married her, wrote her a song that became a national treasure, and built a life with her in the mountains of Colorado. But the magic in the music masked the quiet unraveling behind closed doors. As John's fame exploded, Annie's world began to fall apart. The man who once sat beside her and shared quiet mornings in Aspen became a distant, unpredictable stranger, consumed by the demands of celebrity. He traveled constantly, surrounded by adoring fans and flashing lights, while Annie stayed home, keeping their world steady for their children. Over time, that emotional distance grew into resentment, pain, and loneliness. John admitted to struggling with fidelity, depression, and a restlessness he couldn't control. He chased purpose in the spotlight, but lost himself in the process. Annie never told the world what she was going through. She held on to her silence, perhaps out of love or to protect their children. But decades later, at 78, she finally acknowledged that the rumors surrounding their marriage weren't all lies. She confirmed that John carried a deep pain, something fans had long sensed but never heard out loud: the stories of John's drinking, emotional instability, and dangerous behavior started surfacing more publicly in the late 1970s. His mood changed. His interviews grew erratic, and his lyrics became more reflective and heavy. Then came the Duous one in 1993 and another in 1994, followed by a serious car crash. These incidents chipped away at the wholesome image he had built. In fact, because of those convictions, the FAA revoked his medical certification, legally grounding him from flying. Still, he continued to pilot aircrafts. And it was one of those solo flights in 1997 that ended in tragedy. When his plane crashed into the Pacific Ocean, he died instantly at age 53. Toxicology reports showed he was sober at the time, but the crash was ruled an accident caused by a design flaw in the aircraft's fuel system. Annie, ever composed, didn't speak at his memorial. She stood quietly among the mourners, carrying the weight of a love story that the world thought it knew. After their divorce in 1982, Annie never remarried. She quietly raised their 2 adopted children and kept out of the spotlight. John, on the other hand, tried love again with Australian actress Cassandra Delaney. But that marriage followed a similar pattern: intensity, distance, and eventual breakdown. He spoke bitterly about Cassandra in his autobiography and admitted to being emotionally volatile, even aggressive. He once described cutting their bed in half with a chainsaw and nearly choking Annie out of frustration. These weren't just isolated incidents, they were reflections of the pressure, addiction, and inner turmoil he fought. Despite all this, John kept returning to music and activism. He co-founded the WinStar Foundation, launched global tree planting efforts, and passionately defended environmental causes before Congress. He spoke about peace while wrestling with chaos in his personal life. And still, his music remained a constant. Annie's Song played at weddings, on the radio, in tributes. But for Annie, it was a haunting reminder of what once was and what was lost. John's final years were marked by attempts to heal. He went to therapy, entered rehab, and slowed down his touring. He spoke more honestly in interviews, confessed to feeling lost, and tried to reconnect with what mattered. There were rumors he attempted to reconcile with Annie, quietly visiting her in Aspen. She never shared what passed between them during those visits, and maybe that was her way of honoring what remained of their bond. Annie's public appearances are rare and brief. She participated in a few documentaries and podcasts, offering quiet clarity without bitterness. She said that they were too young to handle fame and that the weight of it broke them, but she never tore him down. She simply offered the truth as she lived it without drama, just reflection. Today, she still lives in Aspen, carrying the legacy of a song that was both a gift and a scar. John Denver's life was a paradox. An artist devoted to harmony who struggled deeply with his own. His bandmates, friends, and family remember a man who could be both incredibly kind and unexpectedly distant. They saw him laugh until he cried, challenge others playfully in rehearsals, and extend generosity to crew members like a teammate rather than a star. But they also saw his pain, his drinking, his silences. And through it all, Annie remained the steady figure in the background, the woman who heard his truest words before the world ever did, who knew the man behind the melody better than anyone and who chose, in the end, to let the music tell their story.